Hello and welcome back to this Python series, and this video will cover built-in functions. For your convenience, Python comes with a lot of built-in functions. You can refer to a lot of these in the Python documentation, which I have linked on screen right now. But let's go ahead and take on a few examples of built-in functions. Now, I'm going to first demonstrate the print and the input function, which I've already done many times in the previous lessons, but let's go ahead and just show some examples of that anyway. So, I'm going to go ahead and type in print, hello world, and then let's go ahead and do a variable called user input, and then call the input function over here, and print out user input. Run the program, and as you can see, print will print out whatever's in the string, or whatever data type really, as long as you can put something in between that, those two brackets in the print function, and then it will take in user input, and whatever we type in the interactive shell, it will record that and assign it to that variable name. So demonstrate what the user typed in, and then once we go ahead and print that with the print function, it will print whatever was saved in that variable with the input function that takes in user input. And I can go ahead and run that again and just type in anything, and it will print that as well. As long as it saves, it will, as long as you type in whatever, it will save whatever is typed in because of this function over here. So that's print and input. Next, I'm going to show you one that we haven't used yet, and that is the len function. So over here, do another print line, and this time let's type in print len user input, and len will return the length of an object. In our example, it's going to be a string. So let's go ahead and run the program, and let's type in, let's say, sentence. So as you can see over here, it prints out the number 8, and what it's doing is checking the length of the string. So as you can see, is it correct? Well, yes it is. Sentence is 8 letters. And run it again to just test it out. Type in, this is an example of len. Here it counts how much are in that string. So see if that is true. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And yes, that is correct. If we now, it also counts the spaces. It doesn't only count the letters. So if you count by only the letters, it might be false. But if you include the spaces in between, this total will be 25. So that's an example of the len function. For our next examples, let's look at some functions that convert data types. So over here, I'm going to go in and assign a, I'm going to actually comment this part out first because we're done with these examples over here. And here, let's assign some variables to convert this, and let's add an integer value. Let's simply call that 56. And if we go check the data type with type, so let me go ahead and do print type convert this. Oh, and by the way, type is another built-in function, so let's go ahead and print that out. You can see that right now it says that the current data type is an integer. So let's use some other built-in functions to convert this data type and use the string function. So to do that, we can again do print, and if you do str convert this, it will just convert the integer value into a string. So you can go ahead and print that out, and if we actually, to make it simpler, let's type in an extra string in front just to show that we successfully converted that into a string. So let's do the number is colon, and you'll know if it worked if it prints with no errors, and it does. Actually, let's get rid of this line first because we don't need this line yet, and let's run the program again so it's not as confusing. As you can see, we know that it worked, and the reason for that is because if we get rid of the string function and just simply try to concatenate the integer directly to the string, it should give you an error. And the reason for that, it actually says it right here in the error message. The reason for that error is because it can only concatenate string to string and it cannot do int. And if we don't convert that, the original data type for that variable is an integer, as we saw over here. So that's an example of converting data types using built-in functions. So I'm going to go ahead and return that right now, and that should work as intended. Alright, so that's one way that you can convert data types using built-in functions. And we can also convert the other way. So let's try and do a string to an integer. So I'll do another variable called convert this also, and let's assign this a string data type. So let's add in a number, do 7. So right now, as you can see, if I go ahead, let me go ahead and comment this part out as well, because we don't need to print out the previous example. Check the type of this. Let's convert this also. You can see that even though it's technically it's a number, but it is technically a string data type. So let's convert that. What we can do is to print, and then we can say int convert this also, and let's see what happens when we run it. As you can see, it prints out 7, and to really check if that is indeed the case, let's check the type of this. So you can also do that by seeing if we can add another integer. So let's do convert this also, which is 7. Let's do +3, and let's see if that works. As you can see, it definitely works, because if we did not convert that, it would not work. We converted it to an integer. So now what Python is seeing is it's an integer plus an integer. So as you can see, 7 plus 3 is obviously 10. So that's an example of converting data types using built-in functions again. This is a second example of that. So I'm going to go get rid of this integer function, and let's see if we just try to convert that. Well, let's see if we can just use this directly without converting it. And that's an example of what you will get. It will think that you are trying to concatenate an integer onto a string, because originally what we declared the variable as was a string data type. So that's why we include int in front of that before we can really use that number as an integer. And then once we do that, it will take in 7 plus 3, and that will print out 10, as seen in the previous output. Alright, so those are just some examples of the built-in functions that you can do in Python. And just to conclude this section of the video, let me go ahead and comment this example out right now. And I'm gonna go back to the original example over here, and let's do one more example with the len function. Because right now I've demonstrated with strings, but let's go and demonstrate one with list, the list data type. I'm gonna go and erase this. Well, actually keep the user input variable, we need that. I'm gonna make this into a list instead. So let's do hello world test. Let's go and print that out. As you can see over here, it counts exactly the amount of elements in the list called user input, and that is 3 of them. So lists in Python, the index will start at 0 and it goes to 1 and 2, but it will still count how much is in that list in general. Now if I go and add another one, where let's go ahead and say 8 or whatever, let's run that, and it will now say that in that list there are 4 different values in it. That's one other way that you can use the len function, aside from just trying to get the amount of strings, or amount of values in a string. You can also do that with other data types, such as a list over here. So that is it for the built-in functions lesson. The next one will cover writing our own functions, so stay tuned for that.